They say every man carries a little of his mother's voice inside his head that I used to think mine just came with a slightly louder volume. I'm 28 years old, live in Portland, and work as a UX designer at a mid-sized tech company that I love what I do, building interfaces that feel human, intuitive. That same attention to people is probably what drew me to Leah. Leah's the kind of woman who makes silence feel like music. That we met 2 years ago at a gallery opening. She was there to support a friend, I was there for the free wine and maybe, secretly, to feel like less of a tech guy. That we talked for hours. That I remember walking her to her car and thinking, this might be someone I build life with. Now, we live together in a cozy townhouse with too many plants and a cat that hates everyone but her. Our weekends are lazy brunches, farmers markets, and spontaneous road trips. That I've never felt so seen by someone. My mom has always been involved. Growing up, she was the mom who called the teacher if I got a B+, the one who picked out my clothes until junior year, because blue brings out your eyes. I used to laugh it off. That it was just her way of caring. I told myself that I never thought that care would turn into control. That it happened over dinner. One of those semi-obligatory family Sundays where my mom insists on cooking enough for a small army and everyone eats too much out of guilt. Leah couldn't make it that evening, work emergency, so it was just me, my mom, and her usual parade of casseroles. That we were midway through dessert, her famous lemon pie, when she set her fork down, folded her napkin and said it like she was announcing a weather forecast, I think it's time we start planning the wedding. I laughed. What, mine and Leah's? That's a surprise even to me. She smiled, but not the warm kind. That it was practiced, restrained. No, sweetheart. That I meant you and Emily Chen, you remember her, right? The air thinned. That I blinked, certain I'd misheard. Emily, Mrs. Chen's daughter, from piano lessons in 6th grade? Mom nodded as if this made perfect sense. She's back from New York, and she's ready. Her parents and I have been talking. I stared at her. Talking about what? She poured herself more tea, calm as ever. About your future, about how this is the right match for you, for both of you. The words didn't compute. Somewhere between the lemon pie and the tea, my life had derailed, and I hadn't even seen the turn. That I should have walked away, but part of me hoped this was all some elaborate misunderstanding, that it would fall apart under the weight of its own absurdity. Instead, a week later, I found myself sitting at my mother's dining table again, this time with Emily Chen, her parents, and my mom beaming like the host of a reality show. Emily looked polite. She wore a pale blue dress and her smile was rehearsed. Just like everything else that night, her parents made stiff conversation about real estate and travel. My mom floated around refilling wine glasses and throwing in hints like, you two always got along as kids, and, just imagine the wedding photos. I barely touched my food. At one point Emily leaned over and said quietly, this wasn't my idea either, but I've learned to trust what's expected of me. I nodded, numb. Then I stood up. I'm sorry, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. But I'm not marrying someone just because our parents shook hands on it when we were 10. I'm in a relationship. A real one. With someone I love. The silence was immediate and total. Then my mom slammed her fork down. You're making a scene, sit down. I won't be part of this, I said. You can't plan my life like a charity gala. Emily looked down, her parents looked furious. My mom, her face burned with something between humiliation and rage. I left without dessert. That night, I told Leah everything, every strange word, every forced smile at that dinner, every chilling line from my mother. She listened in silence, her fingers wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea like it was the only thing anchoring her to the moment. When I finished, she set the mug down and said, so what now? I took a breath. We leave, just us. She didn't hesitate. Okay. A week later, we drove south under the cover of darkness, just 2 bags in the trunk and a marriage license appointment in another state. It felt like something from a movie, the kind where the protagonists don't know if they'll win, but they run anyway. In a cheap motel room outside Eugene, I knelt beside the bed and pulled out a small box. No fanfare, no speech. Will you marry me? Leah's eyes softened. Yes. Of course. The day of the wedding was quiet. No guests, no chaos. Just a courthouse, 2 rings, and a judge who smiled like he knew we were running from something. That we were signing papers when the door opened. My mother's voice sliced through the room. Don't you dare do this. Behind her stood Emily, her expression unreadable, and Mr. and Mrs. Chen, pale, livid, silent. The pen in my hand didn't tremble. The room froze. The judge looked from us to the door, brows raised. Leah's hand tightened in mine. I stood up, not to fight, just to hold my ground. My mother marched forward, her heels echoing like accusations. You're throwing everything away, for this? She gestured at Leah like she was some random stranger, not the woman I loved. You have no idea what you're doing, she continued. Do you know what you're giving up? Connections, security. A life we built for you. I didn't ask for any of it, I said quietly, her face twisted. You're being ungrateful, after everything I've done. Leah stood now too. What you've done, she said calmly, is try to erase me from his life. You don't belong here, my mother snapped. This is family business. No, I said, stepping between them. This is my life, and I'm done letting you script it. Mrs. Chen spoke for the first time, voice low but pointed. There are consequences for disobedience. My laugh was hollow. What is this, a dynasty? The judge cleared his throat. Are we proceeding? I looked at Leah, she nodded. Yes, I said, let's finish this. The rest went quickly, signatures, rings. A kiss that felt like a door slamming shut on the past. My mother stormed out, but I stayed. I wish that had been the end, but control doesn't surrender quietly. Within days, the fallout began. My aunt called, furious. How dare you humiliate your mother like that? Uncles, cousins, everyone had something to say. Most had only heard her version, that I'd abandoned my family, disrespected a generous arrangement, and married a girl who was just after my money. But worse came when Leah's job called her in. An anonymous complaint had been filed against her at the hospital, claims of ethics violations, totally unfounded. Someone had sent an email with screenshots of old social media posts and out-of-context messages, clearly an attempt to stir trouble. That's when I knew, this wasn't over. I went back to my childhood home under the guise of making peace. While my mother was out, I searched the cabinet in her study, the one she kept locked unless she needed to brag about her organizational skills. What I found stopped my breath. An old envelope, sealed, marked with both our families' names. Inside was a contract, a real one, with signatures. A marital agreement, dated over 15 years. It laid out terms like a business deal, dowry, shared property, even a clause about family investments tied to our eventual union. There it was, proof I'd been part of a trade. A deal made before I could spell the word love. I took it. It was time everyone knew that I didn't want revenge. I wanted the truth. So I gathered them. A family dinner. This time my invitation. My mom, the Chens, a few key relatives. Leah sat beside me, calm, composed. This time, we set the tone. I placed the contract on the table, unfolded slowly. Before we eat, I said, I think everyone should see what this was really about. I shifted. My mother's jaw tightened. Emily's father reached for his glasses. I read aloud, the clause about a financial arrangement, the investment agreement tied to marriage, the bonuses contingent on our compliance. It was all there, notarized. A business transaction disguised as tradition. This, I said, is not love. It's coercion. My mother tried to interrupt, something about intentions, family legacy, but I kept going. I spoke about the emails to Leah's job, the campaign of guilt and sabotage, the manipulation, the control. This ends now. Some sat in stunned silence. Others, including my uncle, stood up, furious. You dragged the whole family into a lie. My mother didn't speak, she just stared at me as if seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. I walked out with Leah, the weight finally off my back. We built a new life, far from the noise, far from control. We held our small wedding celebration a few months later with people who chose to love us, and sometimes, when I look back at that contract, I remember, I wasn't disobedient. I was free.